ICE agent has shot and killed a protester in Minneapolis, a very troubled city, one of the most chaotic places in the USA right now. When something like this happens, and it's unfolding today, people immediately take sides. They know everything. Oh, yeah. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to tell you what we know right now, and then tomorrow I'll do a talking points because we'll have much better information. ICE agents descended upon Minneapolis in the wake of the Somali fraud situation, ordered there by President Trump and Homeland Security. 2,000 ICE agents looking for what always they look for, criminal aliens and then people tied into those migrants. So 2,000 is a lot of folks. And Minneapolis is a radical left city. Okay, that's the George Floyd situation. You know it very well. And right now, Minneapolis and Minnesota is a center of far left governance. Okay, so I'll give you what I know, and then I'll give you my opinion on it, and then we'll get into some other stories, particularly Greenland. So Kristi Noem basically says that ICE officers were attacked by a woman using her car, much like the Chicago situation a few months back. The city of Minneapolis, the mayor, Jacob Fry, and the police chief say no. The woman was fleeing. ICE shot her for no reason as she was driving her car away. All right, we have seen video that shows the bullet holes in the front of the car. That's all I'm going to say. That video may be distorted. Maybe we're reading it wrong. But tomorrow we will know who is not telling the truth. The Minneapolis mayor and police chief or Kristi Noem. We will know. Not a hard question. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to take sides. I suspect that the Minneapolis people will be in trouble, but I probably shouldn't even say that. Anyway. The whole thing is related to the defiance of the far left people in the state of Minnesota. Mayor Jacob Fry, as I mentioned, and Governor Walz. And these people don't want any enforcement on migrants in the United States at all. Now, Fry in particular is an irresponsible zealot. And here's what he said after this poor woman was shot. Roll it.
To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead. That's on you. And it's also on you to leave.
So ICE get the F out of Minneapolis. Now that is very clear that Fry is irresponsible. You just don't do that. Okay? And he's very, very close to incitement. Now, the FBI already on the case with the Minneapolis authorities and the state. So it's a three-pronged investigation. But I watched a lot of video before I came to tape. I didn't see any cops. Local Minneapolis police. There's a bunch of demonstrators, not a lot, but a bunch. They're the radical people, the usual suspects, as they call them. They're out taunting ICE. So that's what we know. Now, if I'm President Trump, I have FBI agents interview Mayor Fry. Okay? And the Justice Department got to get involved with him. Because I said very close to incitement. So he's inciting. Law is inciting a riot. Okay? But he's inciting a situation that puts not only his own people in danger, but federal agents. Do not be surprised if the National Guard shows up Okay? Person's dead. ICE agents say they are in danger. So that's what we know. Walz, he's in so much trouble now with the Somali thing. He's kind of in the background here, but I expect he'll emerge tonight. Media coverage, CNN was restrained on it. But obviously they book guests that are sympathetic to Fry's position and dislike ICE. I mean, just count up the guests. And Fox will do the exact opposite. They'll put the people that are in favor of ICE in the forefront. That's not what we do here, as you know. But tomorrow we will do a talking points memo. I feel bad for the woman. I mean, who wants to be celebrating, even if she was at fault? Okay? I don't celebrate anybody's death. Never ends, right? Very, very, very harsh climate of hatred in this country. All right, talking points memo is Greenland. So I smile, I'm shaking my head because I wrote a column. It'll be in tomorrow's morning message about how President Trump, he throws these provocative things out on purpose to actually taunt his opposition. And so now it's Greenland. All right. Now I'm going to run through it and tell you what is likely to happen because this thing has been blown way out of any proportion. First thing is December 22nd. Donald Trump from Palm Beach was talking about national security. Go.
We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need it for national security. We have to have it. And he wanted to lead the charge. So we're making him, Marco, today, a special envoy to Greenland. Greenland's a big deal.
Okay, so we need it. This is all imprecise language. Yeah, we need bases, military bases. We already have some, but we need a little bit more up there. Okay? But it's doable. And Marco Rubio is very, very deliberate. But when I saw the appointment that Rubio was overseeing it, I knew there was no chance of a military invasion at all. None. But that doesn't stop the hate Trump zealots. Roll a tape on that.
It is literal life and death stakes, both domestic and global battles over whether Trump can be restrained before he takes more, before he does more damage, before he destroys more. Because he will try to take more. He feels emboldened right now. It's not an accident. Then the wake of successfully invading Venezuela and capturing its leader.
I don't even know why we fight with Greenland. Why we fighting with Greenland? We fighting with Canada. We fighting with Mexico. Yet we in love with Putin. What is happening? Like, this is not America.
That woman's running for the Senate in Texas. We're not fighting up there, lady. Okay. I don't want to rock your world. I find her so entertaining. And I guess I'm cynical being in the news business all these years, but come on. So anyway, let's go to the guy really who's going to negotiate everything in Greenland, Secretary of State Rubio. Roll that tape.
Does the U.S. intend to buy Greenland? Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers this week?
Well, that's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new.
Okay, so, we'll make some kind of deal. Meanwhile, they're all upset in Europe. I was going to run a European soundbite, but I'm not going to do it because why bother? They're upset. And, if President Trump ever did put soldiers, American soldiers, in Greenland to take over, the NATO would just blow up. We wouldn't have a NATO anymore because Denmark, which oversees Greenland, is part of NATO. You can't do that. And he won't do it. He won't do it. All right, a poll... and this is the big reason why President Trump won't do it, is because Americans don't want it. Here is YouGov, all right? Would you support purchasing Greenland? Support 24, oppose 45, not sure 31. Here's a big question. Would you support sending U.S. military take control of Greenland? Support 7%. Okay, so the American people, then you can't. You just hand the midterms to the Democrats if you do that. Another poll, Marquette Law. Okay, same question. Do you support taking control of Greenland? Support 27, oppose 73. Rich Lowry, conservative writer, has a good column today on what should happen. It mirrors mine. He didn't take it from me, but we think in a similar way. So you might want to read Lowry's column. So finally on this, remember Canada? We were going to make Canada the 51st state. President Trump. Okay. So on February 9th, 2025, here's what Trump said about Canada.
I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state because we lose $200 billion a year with Canada, and I'm not going to let that happen. It's too much. Why are we paying $200 billion a year essentially in subsidy to Canada? Now, if they're a 51st state, I don't mind doing it.
Okay, but not going to be a 51st state. And the president, he likes to churn it. And then my liberal friends, I said, all right, is Canada 51st? And then all right. Venezuela laytest, U.S. seized a oil tanker with a Russian flag on it. That doesn't mean anything. They just slapped the Russian flag on there. It was not a Russian tanker, okay? It was filling up with oil in Venezuela. U.S. got it in the North Atlantic, and I guess it'll find its way back to Venezuela. Now, the seizure of oil is another bogus story because we're not seizing anybody's oil in Venezuela. We are buying it, and we have a perfect right to buy it between 30 million and 50 million barrels because when the communists seized control of Venezuela, Chavez and Maduro, they stole all of the oil infrastructure that was built by the United States of America, private American companies. They stole it. So this is basically, they're selling us oil probably below market as a makeup for all that. And Trump is saying, hey, you owe us, you stole our property, you hurt our corporations, so now you're going to get back. And then Venezuela goes, okay, all right, that's what's going on. All right, just so you know. It's payback time. And U.S. companies invested $17 billion in Venezuela, and Chavez and Maduro stole it. $17 billion. Do you hear that in any other newscast? Let me know. Bill at BillO'Reilly.com. Bill at BillO'Reilly.com. And that is the memo. All right, another interesting story unreported. Switzerland has frozen the assets of Nicolas Maduro and 36 other people connected to him. So apparently the Maduro government in Caracas was shipping money and gold to Switzerland. Where do they get all the money and gold? Where do these gangsters get it? Do you hear that reported anywhere? So Switzerland did the right thing and said, we're going to freeze all this. Good. All right, back home. High crime drop in the USA. This is analysis from a guy named Jeff Asher, whose group is AH Datalytics. Okay? They're crime experts. Here is what Mr. Asher found out in 2025. Homicides in America decreased by 20%. Shootings decreased by 17%. Motor vehicle theft down 23%. Robbery down 18%. Rapes down 9% across the country. Now, some of the drops started in 2023 when Biden was president, just to be fair, but the trend is continuing. Why? I'm not sure why, but I know there are two caveats that Jeff did not consider. Number one, in many states, including New York, where I am right now, they have raised the age to prosecute people to 19. So if you're 18 and you commit a crime, it doesn't go on the crime sheet. It goes to family court. And secondly, the very, very progressive DAs don't prosecute crimes. So they're not on the sheet. They just don't, particularly theft and things like that. We had a big scandal in Washington, D.C., where the authorities there were cooking the books, not reporting crimes or arrests or victims. So I'm not sure whether this crime drop is true or not. So that's why I say, find the best guy. And we did, as usual. Jeffrey Halstead joins us from Las Vegas. He is associated with the Genesis operation. It's an emergency management company. Mr. Halstead used to be the police chief of Fort Worth, Texas, big job. And then he went federal. Okay, he also worked with a variety of state law enforcement agencies. So why do you think this is a big drop in particularly violent crime in the USA?
Well, thank you, Bill. It's a great opportunity to speak with you. So one of the true reasons you can see this is because we in the law enforcement culture have innovated, we have deployed technology, and we are working better together than ever before in the history of American policing. With that said, real-time crime centers, fusion centers, the ability to work city, county, state, and federal all collectively to find bad people, it's happening faster than ever. But you are right. Some of these policy changes can make these numbers shift a little bit in different directions. But I can say on behalf of the American law enforcement mission, it is strong after coming back from a defund movement and really almost villainizing all these officers. They're out there working day in and day out to keep Americans safe.
Is it high tech that's aiding the officers on the street? Is it making it easier to prevent crimes? Because, for example, here on Long Island, where I am, they have what they call shot. The police in Central Place can hear any gunfire that takes place, and you get the units there very quickly. And then the bad guys know that they're being surveilled much tighter than they used to be. Is that part of it?
Absolutely, that's part of it. Good analogy, and I'll expand on that a little bit. Now we have drones as first responders, where our goal in law enforcement will get to emergency calls in less than 5 minutes. Drones are there in 30 seconds. And then with license plate reader technology deployed all over major, city and metropolitan regions, they're scanning thousands of license plates per second. So once we get a hit and it's announced to everybody there, and we have drones as a first responder with these other shot spotter technologies, it's bad days for serial criminals because they even talk on some of their criminal podcasts how much they hate drones and advancing technology because they can't get away fast enough.
Okay. So the high tech, and I'm sure the artificial intelligence to come, is a big tool to stop crime, to inhibit bad people from doing things because the odds of them getting caught are higher. But in some municipalities like New York and San Francisco, LA, Chicago, the prosecutions have dropped. So you can steal in California less than $1,000 and you're not charged with a felony, or you're not charged at all. How has that hurt law enforcement?
Well, it's challenged us because now we are building some public-private partnership with a lot of retail associations, a lot of task forces, and even and building stronger relationship with these elected officials, county attorney and district attorneys. It does strengthen our capacity to get cases prosecuted. But what we do now is we go after serial offenders where a volume of offenses are lumped together, and with strong relationships in the prosecutorial environment, these cases are being seen now, and these much more serial offenders, they're being taken off the streets within the hour. So, I applaud the men and women, both in the retail association, private security, working with us and then leveraging that strengthened relationships back to our elected officials. The system is better today than it was 5 years ago, and the technology is giving it faster going forward.
All right, final question though. You were in Fort Worth as a police chief, okay? Now, Fort Worth has always been a conservative place. Tarrant County, right?
Yes, sir.
And then I was working in Dallas for the ABC affiliate there. Dallas is a liberal city. And the difference in crime fighting was, pretty stark, and just 20 miles away between your crew in Fort Worth and the Dallas crew. How much of that do you feel is going on around the country? that it depends where you are, how far you are protected.
On the onset, if you just look at the surface, what you said is exactly true. 28 miles apart, Dallas and Fort Worth are starkly different. However, the brotherhood and sisterhood of the law enforcement mission is stronger than ever. We really never ever bring in politics in any of our decision-making, task force operations, or the people that we need to go get. And we are trying to strengthen those partnerships with technology so we can work collectively together and faster.
I never had a doubt. I have a little bit of doubt about the Minneapolis police chief after hearing him today say that the woman who was shot in Minneapolis was fleeing the scene. I don't believe the evidence is going to back him up, and that's going to be a problem. And you know as well as I do, because you're a guy that your operation, Genesis, operates everywhere in the United States. There is a big difference among how law enforcement is seen. Mr. Offset, thanks very much. We really appreciate your expertise, and I hope we can talk again soon. Thank you. Final thought of the day. Got a very sad letter today from a concierge member. And remember, if you're in trouble, you come to us, and we'll try to help you. Concierge membership. The woman's broke. She's a widow. She got bills. She can't pay them. She doesn't know what to do. So she wants people to give her money. Okay. Now, it's my job to keep all of you, every person watching and listening to me tonight, in the real world. So I had to say, and I was so sad, I said, nobody is going to give you money. No one. Because they don't know you. They don't know your circumstance. You could be a con person. I don't think she is. I thought this was a very sincere letter. But that's not going to happen. Now, if you have family or longtime friends, they might help you out. Maybe. But strangers aren't going to help you out. I know they have these GoFundMe places. I got it. And once in a while, they can be effective. But if you are in dire circumstance, and this woman, it sounded to me like she was, I steered her to a place in her state that deals with people in trouble like this. And I said, go there, talk to the people, and report back to me on what they tell you to do. Because there are programs, particularly for the elderly, for senior citizens. There are programs in every state that can help you pay down debt, manage things like that. You just have to know where they are, and we'll give it to you. That's part of our service here. But the woman kind of thought that people were going to give her money to bail her out. Not going to happen. And even asking friends and family for money is so difficult. Not only for the person asking, but for the person on the receiving end of the request. Like this, because everybody's circumstance is different. Everybody has got obligations. Generosity, we're the most generous people on earth, Americans, far and away. Second, Canadians, but we're way ahead of them. And we do give, but personal circumstances, mismanagement, things like that, very, very hard. Anyway, we'll help this woman. I don't know if we can help all her problems, but we'll try. Thank you for watching and listening to the No Spin News. I'm Bill O'Reilly. We will have the absolute truth about what happened today with ICE in Minneapolis tomorrow. So please join us then. This is an important broadcast. It will teach you a lot about not only the conflict in Minneapolis with ICE, but the world. And I'm going to go through this in a very methodical way. We always want your feedback, bill@BillO'Reilly.com, bill@BillO'Reilly.com. Now, as you know, our mantra is people believe what they want to believe. And that's about 90% of the population, the human population. So, facts, not a lot of facts matter. It's all emotion. They believe what they want to believe. So within minutes of this terrible shooting in Minneapolis, people were forming sides. All right. The left, which does not want immigration enforcement, They were demonizing ICE, and the right, which does want the federal government to control illegal immigration, was demonizing the left and some, but not too many, the actual victim herself, who was a leftist. Okay? Now, I'm going to go right through this in the talking points memo. So obviously, up top, anybody celebrating the death of another human being needs to see a psychiatrist. So let's get that out of the way, virtue signaling, whatever you want to label it. Nobody should be dead. And it didn't have to happen. And it happened because of bad decision making. That's why this woman is dead. Her name is Renee Nicole Good. All right, she's the mother of 3 children, including a 6-year-old son. She's a lesbian. She lives with a female partner. Why does that matter? Because it's not clear now where the younger boy will wind up, and I'm very concerned about him. 15-year-old daughter, 12-year-old son, they live with their father. Okay? So we're always very concerned about children in situations like this. Now, her mother, Ms. Good's mother, says she was not an activist, but she was. She's a very ardent liberal, and my sources in both Colorado, where she lived, and in Minnesota, she wasn't a bomb-throwing Antifa, but she was emotionally involved in left-wing causes. So the first bad decision which led to her death was she should not have been interrupting a federal investigation, which she was. And she had parked her car to try to impede federal agents. That is a terrible decision, particularly when you have 3 children. Now, I'm not blaming her for her death. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just saying that bad decisions lead to bad outcomes. Okay? There's no reason on earth why that woman should have put herself in that kind of jeopardy. And if you watching me tonight anywhere in the world do the same thing, you're likely to get hurt and you may die. You do not impede authorities on the job. Anywhere, anytime. You do not do that. That's not protest. Now, right after the woman was killed, you had this unbelievable far-left garbage saying that she was a legal observer or some kind of crazy stuff. She was not. She was breaking the law. That's obstruction of justice, what she did. All right? Now, the most important thing that I have said so far in this whole reportage, I repeated last night on Cuomo. Roll the tape. Well, number one, I'm not going to second guess the law officer. That's cheap, and I'm not going to do it. All right, I wasn't there, and anybody doing that should reevaluate. Number two, this is a story about bad decisions. And in your life, in everybody's life, if you make a number of bad decisions, you're going to pay the price. Okay, so I do not think it is fair for anybody to condemn that officer who shot Ms. Good. What you would need to make a decision on that is enhanced videotape. As you sit in a room, it would go frame by frame from every angle. And then you would need to hear the agent himself testify what his state of mind was. These are split-second decisions. It really angers me. I'll tell you what, you see these people on television do this? I really think it's so immoral, but I'm not doing it. Okay? I am not doing it. I have been in situations, wife death, guns involved. Okay? I know the adrenaline flow. I am not going to pass judgment on that man. Not. And I didn't pass judgment on Ms. Good either. I just said it was a bad decision for her to be in a car impeding a federal investigation, blocking it. Now, the bad decision making goes back to Joe Biden. That's where it goes. That is the genesis of this story. So you allow millions of people unsupervised to come into the United States, you're going to have a criminal element come in, and they're going to kill people, which they have. And therefore, your decision making, Mr. Biden, has led to death and destruction, and has led to now President Trump having to correct your terrible decision by employing federal authorities to arrest and deport criminal aliens and others who are not in this country illegally. Remember, they all have to have a warrant. But the ICE is not making that decision on the street. They're going after criminal aliens, okay? And if there are other non-criminal aliens with them, they get swept up. That all goes back to Joe Biden. That bad decision that he made, probably the worst presidential decision of all time, has led to this woman's death yesterday. In addition, the people who run states like California, Illinois, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Massachusetts, and others made a decision not to obey federal law. We are not going to obey federal law. This is rebellion. That's what it is. It's like what South Carolina and other southern states did in the 1850s. We are going to rebel against the federal government. There is an immigration law. We are not going to uphold it. And Minnesota is perhaps the worst because they won't even cooperate when criminal migrants are involved. That decision-making on the part of Governor Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey in Minneapolis did contribute to the death of Miss Good because those two men incited Miss Good. How did they do that? Well, listen to for yourself. Go.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye, just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared.
To ICE, get the f*** out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart.
You know, very early on in President Trump's first term, I discussed this with him, and I said, look, you have a case that you can make against these sanctuary states. The Justice Department can sue them for big money. And that's what should have happened. It did not. It didn't happen. But there's no question that Walz and Frey are inciting, all right, actions against the federal government. Of course they are. You can't deny that. Who could deny that? And this poor woman is caught up in that hysteria. Now on to the Trump administration. When you have a $9 billion fraud perpetrated by a number of illegal migrants from Somalia, when $9 billion is stolen from the American taxpayer, you have an obligation to send Homeland Security agents to the site where the $9 billion fraud took place. That's not an option. That's an obligation. Now, Walz and Frey, they don't care about the $9 billion. They looked the other way. They had to know. They had to know. And they allowed it. So you can't deal with them. They're in rebellion against the United States. So President Trump orders 2,000 ICE into Minneapolis to not only round up criminal aliens, and these Somalis who participated in this fraud are criminal aliens, but to impose a kind of order in Minneapolis, which is lacking. Though, if you want to make an equivalency, you can't, because the President of the United States, it could be anybody. There's an obligation to stop a $9 billion fraud. Expose it, prosecute it. Then you have unbelievable media, and I'm not going to get into that today, who again, they follow the pack, and the pack hates Trump. So the bad decision making is, we're not going to try to find out what happened. We're just going to condemn Trump and everything he does. Then you have a de-escalation order. Now remember, every police agency in the country, local, state, and feds, the agency teaches to de-escalate any kind of potential life-threatening situation. That's a fact. Though you people who are on the side, if you want to use that phraseology, of the police, have to know that. The ICE agents in this case did not de-escalate. They didn't. And that's a fact. Now, I'm not condemning anybody. I'm just saying that de-escalation is the rule of the land in police agencies. A lot of people don't understand that. And that did not happen in Minneapolis yesterday. Okay, so all of these things were swirling around when I went on News Nation last night with the three Americans, Cuomo, Stephen A. Smith, and myself. Roll the tape.
Bill O'Reilly, may I chime in?
Sure.
May I chime in and speak? May I chime in and speak to you directly, Bill? Here's where I'm disappointed, Bill. Here's where I'm disappointed, Bill, in your response. So you can have an opinion about her, but you can't have an opinion about the officer, even though you've seen the video numerous times. You've seen the video. I've watched it 10 times.
I can't put myself in his shoes. I think it's irresponsible to do that.
Okay.
Because I don't know the state of mind of the man when a vehicle is coming at him. It's irresponsible to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Okay. I'm coming to you. Let me be irresponsible. A 37-year-old woman, she wasn't coming down the street going 90 miles an hour. She was stationary. She was still. And then she took off. So you had to move out the way as she was taking off, okay? And you shoot her in the
wait
head?
a minute. Let me reply to that. I'm for de-escalation. I support de-escalation. In every kind of a situation, not just this. I don't want to see anybody die. All right? So if I were there, I'd like to think that I would have tried to de-escalate. But it's not fair of me because I don't know the state of mind of the officer when he sees a vehicle lurch forward, and I'm not going to condemn it. I am not going to do that, no matter how many videos you show. Show it to a grand jury, a federal grand jury, and let them decide after forensics and this and that, and hearing the officer. Okay.
What she did is not worthy of the death penalty, but it's about where you start the chain of causation, Stephen A., with about why they were there in the first place.
Well, I wanted to throw out this question to Bill, in all honesty, because I appreciate his candor. I don't agree with his position totally, but I respect it, and I respect where he's coming from. What I would ask you in return is this, Bill. So, of course, where things start, that matters. And we understand that. That was instigated by her action. Some people was on the left will say it's instigated by ICE because they shouldn't be there, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going there.
Stephen A., you got a big vehicle coming at you from 10 feet away. That's a situation.
He was right in front of the car.
And let the people deliberate on it. There is a system. All right? And I will trust what the people in a federal grand jury or whatever forum decide. Not us. And that's the right way to handle this. Now, there is a report that the federal government is not turning over all the evidence to the local authorities in Minnesota. I'm not surprised by that. The FBI does not trust law enforcement in Minneapolis. They simply don't trust it. And neither do I, because they're under the orders of Walz. And Walz is a fanatical anti-Trump in rebellion to the United States guy. That's the truth. All right. Now, going forward, the Trump administration is not going to capitulate to this, and they shouldn't. There has to be order. The laws have to be enforced. But the sanctuary places, you got to take action against them. You got to stop this. All right, these sanctuary people, the FBI should interview Jacob Fry and Governor Walz and say, look, you're on the verge of incitement here and rebellion here. That's where you are. because that's what the truth. You can't have this. We had it before the Civil War, and anybody who's read my book, Killing Lincoln or Confronting the Presidents, knows it. You can't allow this stuff, or you're not going to have a country. Okay, so finally, we're going to say honest story. And on Monday, we'll encapsulate it again. But I'm going to offer mass for both the victim and the officer on Sunday. I want you to know that. And that's a memo. Let's bring in John Solomon, one of the best reporters in the United States. In my opinion, he's an honest man. He fronts the Just the News operation, which you should be familiar with. All right, what's the latest? Have you learned anything that we don't know?
Well, listen, I think the most important thing we learned today came from the FBI Director, Kash Patel, who told us in a statement. We asked this question, what are you doing about the protesters? And he said, we're investigating both the organizers of the protest and the funders of these protests, these anti-ICE protests in Minneapolis, for possible criminality. What is that criminality? Obstruction of justice, just like you correctly identified in your monologue. When you sit there, you put your truck in front of a law enforcement vehicle with their blinking red lights. When you went to driving school and were told to pull over for the cops and get away out of their way, you know you're obstructing a law enforcement. So that means financiers, if it's a George Soros or someone like that, we don't know who it is, but whoever the financiers are, the logistical organizers could be soon facing prosecution. That is what Kash Patel told us today. I think that's an important part of this equation. Yeah, you harped on something that's always mystified me as a reporter. In the last 5 years that Donald Trump was in office, there have been multiple opportunities to prosecute or civilly litigate against sanctuary cities in a significant way. It is clearly obstruction of justice when you have an arrest warrant and you're in custody of the felon and you won't give that felon over to the United States government. It's always wondered why the Trump Justice Departments haven't gone that route, and I continue to endeavor to try to get that answer. I can't get an answer yet. But I do think today, knowing that these protests are part of the problem, part of the bad decision-making, as you so eloquently put it in your monologue, I think it's a big step today that the FBI on the record said, if you're organizing, you're providing material support, you're providing money to make these protests, and these protesters engage in obstruction of law enforcement, you will be prosecuted. I think that's a big moment that hasn't been said before in any of this sanctuary city debate.
Okay. How about incitement? That's a harder one because of the First Amendment.
That's right.
No doubt in my mind that these two men, Walsh and Fry, incited people to go out and confront the ICE agents. And then when you go out and confront law enforcement, obviously bad things are going to happen. But incitement, federal charges of rebellion, they're much, much harder to, judges are very askance at that. But is there anything underway there at all?
Not yet. Not that I can talk about. I think those First Amendment issues that you write give a little pause to the FBI. They feel like they have better cases to be made right now that get the same people for accountability that haven't been brought. And there are 2 or 3 really significant cases underway. The first case, of course, is the one that they announced today, that they're looking at these protesters and organizers, and if any campaign donated to, let's suppose a Democrat donated money to these groups, they could be held culpable for being part of an obstruction process. The second one is the sheer size of the fraud, and what did the people in charge of protecting that federal money do? And Tim Walz, as the recipient of federal monies that got defrauded in these programs, what did he know, when did he know it, and did he make a conscious decision to look the other way and allow the American people to be fleeced in a significant way, maybe $9 billion. Those cases are underway, and I've talked to lots of law enforcement officials the last couple of weeks that tell me they're looking at state officials as possible co-conspirators in the fraud scheme. And then I think the third one is the one we went back to, which is the one I can't get an answer on yet from the Trump Justice Department, but I think we're owed one as the American public. If you're Tim Walz and you have 600 people, like Kristi Noem said at her news conference last night, in your custody that we have lawful arrest warrants for, and you won't turn them over, are you obstructing justice? And should you, as the governor, forget rebellion, it's just simple, old-fashioned obstruction of justice. And I'm going to work hard to get that answer from the Trump Justice Department I've been knocking on doors all day on that one.
All right. And the Homeland Security Secretary, Ms. Noem, has to be careful because she made some misstatements yesterday as well.
I agree.
I mean, you can't. I don't believe for a second that the victim is good. All right, was tied into Antifa or any of that. I think she was just a misguided person who acted on emotion and then panicked.
The domestic terrorism label doesn't apply here. No one in common sense America would buy that. And so both sides need to turn the rhetoric down and stick to the facts.
Because you got to be fair on this. Bad decision making, that's in both precincts. But right now, the woman would still be alive.
That's right.
If Minnesota obeyed the law.
Yeah. Your monologue could not have put it in a better light. That's the way most common sense Americans are going to look at it. They look.
I hope so.
Americans are so much common sense than our politicians are.
John, thanks very much. We always appreciate having you on.
Yeah. Good to be with you, my friend.
Just the news. Final thought. So WABC, as I mentioned before, is our flagship radio station. We have 300 radio stations around the country. Carry my commentary. And we're very pleased to be on WABC, which is the dominant number one, not only in the New York metropolitan area, which is the biggest market, but around the country, because you can access WABC radio from your computer now, from your smartphone now. Just punch up WABC News Radio Live, and there it pops up. So I was on Sid and Friends this morning, of course, talking about Minneapolis. Roll the tape.
So we get every morning the blast that these dishonest people send out to the media. It's really unbelievable how they do it. And then politicians and pundits pick up the exact wording. So this is a legitimate observer, this woman who was killed. Now, she's not a legitimate observer. She was breaking the law by what she did. And that's why she's dead. And I feel terrible. You're a 6-year-old child.
Yeah.
This woman.
Right.
So anybody that celebrates that or is happy that she's dead, you need to see a psychiatrist.
And by the way, not only is nobody happy she's dead, but the person that is least happy that she's dead is this poor cop.
Of course. His life now is in absolute turmoil.
So anyway, a heads up on WABC, well worth seeking out. I'm on there on Katz and Cosby Mondays at the end of their program, on Sid every day, commentary, and then an extended segment at 9 a.m. on Thursdays. So if you want to check us out. Very nice of you to watch us tonight. We got a whole bunch of stuff coming over the weekend. Stay close to BillO'Reilly.com. We'll see you again.